be an artist, but here we have the face, the lungs, the heart, the viscera, the colon, so the large intestine, the small intestine, and the diaphragm. So the ventral component of the vagal system comes out of the brainstem. So if you put your hand at the back of your head, right there where your head kind of meets the neck, right here. So it comes out of the brainstem, and then it tracks through the face. It innervates all of the face. It innervates the throat, all of the vocal cords, the bronchial tubes. It comes down and it innervates the lung tissue, the cardiac tissue, the heart, and the diaphragm. So when we're in a ventral state, we're in a place where we feel safe, at ease. This is thought of as baseline, right? Sort of like homeostasis. This is a place, we talk a lot about social engagement in this aspect of the nervous system. We'll talk more about that in a moment. And this is also thought of as the rest and digest state. So the other aspect of the vagal complex is the dorsal aspect. So the dorsal aspect, it also comes out of the brainstem. And this one, it takes the high road, the autobahn, right down to the viscera, and it innervates all of the organs, all of the viscera. And the dorsal part of the vagus complex is responsible for, when we're in the dorsal aspect, that's when we're frozen, freeze, shut down, collapse. When you think about being numb or spacey or sort of zoned out, spacey and zoned out are lesser degrees of this, but when you lose your keys or you're driving on the highway and all of a sudden you're at work. We also see collapse and feigned death here in this state. So let's talk a little bit about it. We'll give some examples that will help this make more sense. So I'm going to remove this as well. This is the third aspect of the nervous system, and we'll get to it in a second. So imagine that you are a reptile. The reptile is crawling along, and a predatorial bird goes overhead. The reptile is going to freeze. I'm a leaf. I'm a leaf. You can't see me. So this dorsal complex is actually brilliant, right? And I'm going to write that down. This is brilliant. This is a protective impulse. By freezing, they are more likely to survive. This is involuntary. As we continued evolving, we developed more capacity to survive, and some of them were slightly more sophisticated. So for example, the antelope's like, I'm gonna flight, I'm not gonna hang out here. And the lion is like, no, I don't think so, I'm gonna fight, right? So we developed the next aspect of the nervous system. This is slightly more sophisticated. These tools are more likely to work than freezing. And then as we continued evolving, we developed the ventral portion of the vagal system. So this is the part of our system, remember, the social engagement component. This is where we would be like, whoa, 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 don't shoot. Or here's my wallet. Or let's talk about it. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. So this again, this is more sophisticated and more likely to work. So let's talk a little bit about how this system employs, like what happens. So let's say you're in the car. We'll use an example. You're driving down the road, like life is good. You're at baseline. Maybe you're even singing a song. That means you're here in ventral. You are feeling safe. Rest, digest. You're able to integrate life. And then let's say that the car in front of you slams on its brakes. What you're going to do is respond. And the way that you respond is by activating the stress response. So your pupils will dilate, your heart rate will increase, your digestion will stop. Norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline start pumping through the body in a few hundred milliseconds. There's changes in blood sugar level, blood rushes away from your skin so that if you get cut, you don't bleed out. Blood rushes to your hands so you can grip a weapon, and to your leg muscles so you can run. This stress response is also called physiological arousal. So, we were here in ventral vagal. The car in front of us slammed on its brakes, right? So what we needed to do is engage the stress response, engage physiological arousal, And what that means is we come down here into sympathetic tonus, right? So we have mobilized. And we are now prepared, because we've mobilized all of this internal resource, we are now prepared for an all-out fight or flight. All of those resources are present in our system, right? In fact, even the little bones in our ears, which are typically set up to prioritize human voice above all else, those little bones start to move apart so that we take in every single noise. You can hear a leaf falling on the ground or a predator stepping on a twig, right? Lots of changes start to happen in the system so that you are primed to survive, right? These are protective impulses, fighting or flighting. So let's say that you slam on your brakes and you avoid the car accident. That's great. You would come back up here into the ventral state, right? But let's say that that didn't work, because sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you still get into a car accident and you're not able to avoid it, right? Like, for example, you're strapped into the car. So you cannot run away, right? You're trapped. You can't run faster than a car anyway, and you're not able to fight a 2-ton piece of metal coming towards you. So then what happens is your body employs the next protection mechanism that it has, and you come down here whoosh, into dorsal vagal. Now, dorsal vagal is actually a really brilliant, remember this is brilliant, involuntary mechanism. And there's an extraordinary brilliance to this. For example, the lion, let's say the mama lion, is dragging an antelope back to her den for her cubs. If the antelope dissociates, she doesn't have to feel the pain, the agony of the claws. So we hear people like soldiers and nurses in shock trauma and abused children saying, I could see my body, but I didn't feel what was happening. They were able to survive without feeling the agony. Sometimes this is thought of as nature's mercy, right? So in this state, we are able to survive the horror of war or a car accident, right? The other thing that happens here, and this is a fun one, is sometimes we see feigned death. So imagine a possum, playing possum. That possum probably doesn't want to be playing dead because there's an animal like a fox or a wolf sniffing all around them. And I bet that that possum wants to run away. Like, that's all the possum wants to do. However, through evolution, the possum has discovered, right, has created, has realized that there is a better chance of survival if they play dead. And the reason is because predators like wolves and bears and foxes, they have a kill instinct. And they want to chase live meat because if they eat dead meat, it could be spoiled and they could get sick. So by playing dead, that possum is pretending to be spoiled and is more likely to survive. But I can imagine the possum is extraordinarily stressed out while there's a predator literally sniffing around him. So again, we have to remember that this is an involuntary response. It is totally not something that we're choosing. And there is a brilliance to it. This is a way that we can survive. This is a protective impulse. And when we start to realize that, it's really destigmatizing and it strips away layers of shame. Sometimes people are like, well, how come that rape victim didn't do something? Or how come I froze when I was on the phone with my boss? It's not your fault. Your body was doing what it thought would help you survive. So this is a little bit about polyvagal theory. We're going to talk just about 2 more threads. And then in video 2, we'll talk about, from a trauma perspective, from a nervous system perspective, what happens, like how you get yourself back to a ventral vagal state.